is, on official ratings, Phil, the best horse in the Arc de Triomphe?
Okay, let's go through them one by one. And just remember that handicappers are reactors, not predictors. So, but these are I think it's a fascinating race. I've got it down to 5. The sort of pretty obvious 5. I've excluded Found, I have to say. So it would be a surprise if I think she's on 118 at the minute, plus a filly's allowance. It would be a real surprise if she can overcome all these other horses that we know are pretty good. So let's go through them one by one. Let's start with Trev. As a 3-year-old, when she won, she was 130. This year, last year when she won, she's 126. And these are her performances in 2015. In the Prix Corrida, 124. In the Grand Prix de Saint-Cloud, 124. And then in the Vermeil, which is here, right? The biggest split I've ever known amongst the international handicappers.
I hope you rated her through Arabian Queen. She must be the highest rated horse of all time.
Okay. In this race, I rated her 128, and there's another country in our system who rated her 124. I can never.
Surely you can name the country.
No, that would be unfair. But I've never known as much of a £4 differential in any race between the international handicappers. Now, it may have something to do with the fact that there was an official distance correction after the race.
Right.
Because I don't know if you're aware, but originally France Gallo announced the distance as 4.5 lengths, and they then changed it to 6.
It actually looks more than 6 when you watch it.
It's significant, isn't it? So it may well be that the 124 comes from when they thought it was a 4.5 length victory as opposed to a 6 length victory. So I'm being a big guy. So let's assume she's what I think she is this year, 128. Quite a couple of the other countries have gone 126 and said she's the same as last year, because she's clearly beating much inferior opponents in this race than she's going to face on Sunday. So they're being a bit cautious, I think.
So this is last year when she was, I mean, many people would have said she was even more impressive last year than the first time, but the ratings don't bear that out. No?
She was definitely not as good last year. We went 130 as a 3-year-old, 126 as a 4-year-old.
So is that because the opposition weren't as good, or she wasn't as good?
She's not as impressive, and the opposition wasn't as good either. So in the previous year, she was absolutely scintillating. And I think Madame Head was on record as saying that she never had her as perfect in 2014 as she had her in 2013, and this year she's saying she's back as good, if not better than ever.
She said to me this week.
Which is great. So the great thing about Trev, she's either 126, 128, 130. She's somewhere in that ballpark figure, and you add £3 on.
Yeah. Because
she's a filly. So wherever you think she is so far this year.
So let's say she's 127, which is in the middle.
Yeah.
If you add the £3 onto 130, so she's a 130 rated horse as far as the Arc is concerned.
Okay.
Does that make her the best horse?
Well, Golden Horn's official handicap mark at the moment is 130. But of course, it's not based on either of his last 2 runs. And can we just go back just briefly to Trev? I'll come back to Golden Horn. Right. The interesting thing is that she's only ever run once when the F word was in the going description. Now, there's a lot of debate about what the ground is going to be like at the weekend. I suspect it will be no faster than good. It may well have the S word in there somewhere. But that's, I think, is an interesting point. That is, if they do have a week of baking hot sunshine and the word firm is in there, she ran once at Royal Ascot when apparently she was injured as well.
Yeah.
But she clearly didn't like the ground, whether that was the injury or whatever. But that's her worst performance. So I would have some doubts about whether she could replicate that 127 that you mentioned if the ground gets too quick. Let's go back to Golden Horn. His best performance so far this year, I mean, it was a great performance in the Derby. The Derby form has looked really good, but on top of that, his best performance is definitely the Eclipse, when I've got him on 130 and that's we've been publishing 130 in the Longines monthly list, as you've seen many times. Now, since then, right, in the Juddmonte, 117 to 120, somewhere in there. And in the Irish Champion, we've got a mixture of 123, 124. So clearly his last 2 runs, he's not as good as he was in the Eclipse, not performed as well as he was in the Eclipse. But there are possibly good reasons why that's the case. And the key one is obviously the ground. And the connections have always said that, you know, he's always going to be a better horse on good ground. Next point, which I think will be different, I doubt if he'll lead. You know, in the Irish Champion, he's led all the way. And in the
I tried to persuade Anthony Oppenheimer on Monday that we might be seeing a Dancing Brave-esque type ride on Golden Horn, like in the Derby, and he didn't immediately say, oh no, we won't be doing that sort of thing. It's just that Derby way of running appears to be his style, coming from behind off a fast pace, although I know what you say about the Eclipse.
In this quality of field, I'd have doubts if he tries to lead all the way.
Because there is still that slight, in Oppenheimer's mind anyway, a stamina doubt.
I've got no stamina doubts.
Right.
Absolutely no stamina doubts. If he stayed that Derby trip, no problem whatsoever. I've got no stamina doubts. I've got ground doubts, because I don't think if it is good to soft, as you know, you've said to me earlier, you believe that that's possibly what it might be on the day. I would have doubts of whether he can replicate his 130. But there's another aspect to it as well. You know, has his last two performances, which I think everybody would say been below par, have they been because of the ground, or have they been because he's no longer getting such a heavy weight for age allocation that he was in the Eclipse? When he won the Eclipse, he got £11 from 3-year-olds. Sorry, 3-year-olds got £11, right, over 1.5 miles. In the Arc, he's going to get 3.5 kilos. So he's going to get £4 less, and he's going to have to go 2 furlongs further. So have the last two results been ground dependent? Has it been the way the race has been run? Has it been because he led? Or is it because Golden Horn was at his absolute peak in terms of developmentally in the Eclipse, and he's no longer improving his ability at what we expect the weight for age scale to show, which is usually £2 a month.
And of course, that's where weight for age becomes a huge issue, because
massive issue.
For all we know, Golden Horn was at his peak in the Derby or the Eclipse, and he's not progressing as the weight for age scale tells us he has to do.
Absolutely, and certainly his last 2 points.
It's a very good point. No one's discussed that ever.
If you wished to do so, you could say, well, maybe he does handle soft ground. It's just maybe he's not developing as you've just said. I think it's an impossible question to answer. I think it's primarily ground. And I'll be fascinated to see what he's like now with £7 weight for age. And just to stick with the Arc, just did some figures overnight. 3-year-olds have an unbelievable record in the Arc, right? Even though he's going to be on less weight for age than he was in the Eclipse. They've won 16 of the last 21 Arcs, 3-year-olds, and that's 76% of the winners from 45% of the runners. So 3-year-olds in the Arc, and it was interesting that Cricket Head earlier in the week was saying she fears the 3-year-old colts.
Yeah. Very good stat. Just give me that stat again. I'm going to write that down myself. Yep. So
well, 15 of 20 of the last 21 have been won by 3-year-olds.
15 or 16?
5 of the last 21 Arcs.
Yeah.
Sorry, let me
No, start again. 16 of 21
16 of 21 Arcs have been won by 3-year-olds.
Yeah.
Right? And that means it's 76% of the winners have been won by 45% of the runners.
Yeah, it's fascinating. We've only got about 5 minutes left, Phil. Let's forget about Flintshire, but let's just talk about New Bay. As a 3-year-old, trying to boost that 76% stat, how much does he have to find on official ratings?
He's a 120, but he's been running against moderate opposition, and he's not had the opportunity yet to show that he's better than that. I think everybody, you know, in racing knows he's going to be better than 120, and we'll see on Sunday how much better. But he's got to improve if he's going to compete against a fit and informed Golden Horn and a fit and informed Trev. He's 120. He's got a bit to do, but he's unbeaten, and he seems to just do enough each time.
Can I just ask you, if Jack Hobbs is a horse that seems to be almost, you know, being ruled out because of Golden Horn, effectively, from what John Gosden has said. Jack Hobbs will have his turn next year. He doesn't want to run the two together. Jack Hobbs can go to the Champion Stakes. But if he was to run, he looks to be the developing 3-year-old that just seems to be getting better over middle distance with every run. Do the figures bear that out or not?
I love that horse. I have to say, I'm a huge Jack Hobbs fan.
It's not about sentimentality.
I know, but I think handicappers love horses who they see getting better and better and better each time. And he's clearly not going to run, but it's probably because the ground's going to be against him. But if that ground had come up with any sort of give, I think he would have been a fascinating player in the
And he ran on faster in the Irish Derby. The ground's not a problem for Jack Hobbs.
No, but I think he's probably better with a bit of give. But I'm a big Jack Hobbs fan, and I think he would have been a massive player in this race.
John Gosden said to me, and these are his words, so I'm not putting words in his mouth, Golden Horn has already proven himself a better horse than Jack Hobbs. If you were in an argument with John Gosden over that, would you debate that with him quite ferociously?
No, I wouldn't, because he has. Because he keeps beating him. But
your gut feeling is Jack's progressing.
My belief is that Jack is getting better and better and better.
We're very much near to the end of the show. We want to just talk about the 2-year-olds. Is Shalar as good as Frankie says? Is this the fastest horse on planet Earth as a 2-year-old?
Well, he's very quick, clearly. My colleague Matthew Tester does the 2-year-olds at the moment, and you've already accused me of a cop-out, so you probably accuse him. He's got 3 2-year-olds on 120 at the moment. He's got Emotionless.
Have an opinion, man.
Emotionless on 120, Air Force Blue 120, Shalar on 120. Now, realistically, the chances are that either one or both of Emotionless and Air Force Blue will get to a higher figure than that in the Dewhurst. So I suspect that he believes that ultimately Shalar will not be his champion 2-year-old. If things in the Dewhurst go to what he believes, he'll have the Dewhurst as a higher thing. Now, Shalar is clearly the fastest 2-year-old. The fastest doesn't necessarily mean best.
No, and also you're mixing, when you're putting ratings together there, 2-year-olds who are going to presumably be Guineas horses and a 2-year-old who might possibly be a champion sprinter in the making. Of those 3, Emotionless, did that get you? I mean, that got me really going. I was lucky enough to be there at Doncaster, and I thought, I'm not going to see a horse jockey take a pull in the Champagne. And Buick, when he sat there, and then he just eased it, it sort of flowed forward.
And they've got a lot of really nice 2-year-olds. They know exactly where they are, and I know they're going to be up against Coolmore, who will be in a similar position. But I think it's going to be great for racing the Dewhurst, where you have the 2 big battalions coming against each other with a horse that they both think is a champion. And
is it something that the handicappers are taking into account, that it appears that an Appleby horse who runs well first time is a very decent horse? If it wins first time, it's probably a superstar, because they seem to... They're very much of the mould of the first run. Anything's a Brucey bonus, and they can improve dramatically from the first to the second to the third. Sort of thing.
Well, he's clearly a very adept trainer, and you know he's obviously doing a really good job for Godolphin.
Who wins the Arc de Triomphe, Phil? You can have an opinion on these things. You are allowed to. We know you're not allowed to bet, but you can. Who would not? I mean, we all know who would love to win it, because I think everyone would like a Triple Arc winner, but. Who wins the Arc de Triomphe? Who would you, if you could bet, who would you be backing? Well, I wouldn't. I probably wouldn't bet even if I could. Okay, just who wins it, Phil? 3-year-old. But which one, preferably? A name would be good. I think they'd be first and second. Right. In which order? Golden Horn. Golden Horn beats New Bay. Right. Because the weight for age scale you feel is wrong. No, because I think that they are hopefully more likely to be improving. We know what she can do. We don't know what they can both do yet. I think Golden Horn is fascinating, because he's going to be coming back to 1.5 miles. The ground is going to be significantly better, so he's a fascinating horse, and I really hope he's going to be ridden with more restraint.